In Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's a back to work Monday edition. I know you're a little anti-work, Tom, but welcome back to work, man. How you doing?
I'm good, Crudy. Thank you. Good to see you, Evan, working the board. Happy Monday to you and our fair audience. Great to be back.
Buddy, all these work weeks getting in the way of your weekends.
I know, man.
Did you have a nice weekend?
I did. I had to think about it. I mean, today's kind of a crazy day, but yeah, I had a great weekend. Went out with some friends, had to spend some time with my daughter, had some drinks, played some vids, worked out. I mean, it was a good time.
You know, I actually unexpectedly bumped into what I would perceive as an old friend, in a new role. Should I mention who I bumped into?
I mean,
Marriott West.
Well. I didn't even know, man. I know you put it on the socials, but like I said, I was a little checked out. But who, Crudy? Tell the audience who you ran into.
The newly elected Republican Party chair, great state of Wisconsin, Brian Schimming. Old radio dog, Brian Schimming.
Yeah, I used to see him in the hallways over at Heartless Media.
You know, it was a crazy Saturday in this regard. One of the guys that we, Civic Media, bought some radio stations from, Marcus Yeager, I perceive him as a friend now as well. You know, we spent a lot of time making some deals this past year. And Marcus and lots of other broadcasters were at the Marriott West in Middleton, you know, right down the road from me.
Your backyard, man.
And Marcus is like, I'm in town. It's my birthday. You're going to come see me. You know, and the birthday, that was probably the hook, man. You know,
yeah, of course.
As we get a little older, we've only got so many friends left in life. You got to go see if
you only got so many birthdays left in life.
Well, let's hope he's got many, many more. But I went and saw Marcus on his birthday, and I saw a couple of the staffers from here, Alice, the office manager, and Terry Bell, the news director. They were recruiting young talent. And I'm surprised this was a much bigger affair than I would have anticipated.
Like a job fair going on?
Yeah, job fair.
Yeah, okay.
Lots of people there. Lots of young, eager-looking media types. And saw Michelle Vetterkind. She's the head of the WBA. I offered her a hand, and I got back an awkward hug in return. I didn't know I was hug-worthy now, but apparently, you know, the partnership with Civic.
Very hug-worthy. You're like just wrapping up in a big, warm, fuzzy blanket, Crudy, giving you a hug.
As the president of Civic Media, the president of the Wisconsin Broadcasters, thought I was worthy of a hug. Didn't see it coming, but I appreciate it. Michelle's very nice, very cordial. Said, you know, take advantage. These are big things. Look at all these bright, shining faces. And, you know, I saw a guy who recruited me many years ago. Sean Dwyer, my original news director, is still working for WXOW Channel 19 ABC.
How many years ago was that?
Dude, as long as I've known you. I worked for Channel 19 when we were college roommates. That's been...
Wow, man, 30 years?
30 years. 30 years ago, Sean Dwyer had me working for him. And then I bumped into him this weekend. And there was one more. Other than, you know, some other industry people no one knows about, you know, just friends of mine, people I like. But here's one you might know, Dom. Brian Schimming, the Republican Party chair. And the first thing I said to Brian is, well, I swore under my breath as I said, you know, GD, Brian, I've said nice things about you on the radio.
See, why do you do that?
What, say nice things about Brian Schimming on the radio?
I guess got to balance off the other side of Crudy.
Well, I did say nice things about Brian Schimming when he was the newly elected chair. And Brian kind of, I want to be honest, Brian gave me the impression, only Crudy's impression, that he didn't really want that job so bad.
Well, at least it's a paid job finally.
I did bring that to his attention. I do think he appreciates the compensation. Effectively, the Republicans now have a full-time paid chairman. And his name is Brian Schimming. And he's this old radio dog, this buddy of Dom and I's from back.
Well, he was also appointed by Walker to be ahead of WIDA, right? And he was going to be in charge of
Well-
combining WIDA and WEDIC, but that kind of fell apart. I mean, he's an insider, man. It's not like he's not been around. It's not like he's just only a radio dude.
But he was around all the way back to Prosser and the caucus scandal days, the Capitol caucus scandal. Yeah, he's been around. So Brian knows where a lot of skeletons are buried. But I've always found him to be a friendly, cordial guy. We took a little selfie, put it up on the socials, as you noticed. And he was actually there. The WBA was my event, but he was at the Marriott West on behalf of Dan Kelly. The Dan Kelly team was there, Dom, and also some young Republicans. And apparently the young Republicans, because I'm like, hey, where are you guys coming from? I knew where they were coming from. Yeah, stroking them a little bit, wearing their ties, and, seemed maybe a dozen of them, maybe 9 to a dozen, walking out to their car after the event. And they were so proud to tell me they had just elected a 23-year-old chair of the Republican Party of Dane County. And Brian Schimming was there apparently to oversee as the grand poobah of the state party.
Kiss the ring, right? Okay.
Something like that. And, Dan Kelly was there seeking votes.
Thank you, may I have another?
No, I didn't
Thank
see.
you, may I have another?
I didn't see Dan Kelly, but I did hear he had emissaries walking even over in the WBA event. But Brian Schimming, I'm like, why don't I like him anymore? I used to like him. I like him, but like, why don't I like him? What changed? And so as I was telling you the story, I had to do a little Googling, and it was recent. It's not that old. Our mutual friend, Bruce Murphy, the online daily, urbanmilwaukee.com. New state GOP chair involved with fake electors.
Oh, there we go.
Brian Schimming went on talk radio to defend the peaceful protesters at the January 6th Capitol riot. And I'm
Staying within the velvet ropes.
It used to be that we could just be friends with Republicans. I mean, I had Dale Schultz sitting in the chair the other day. Dale Schultz, twice elected majority leader. There's lots of Republicans. I mean, hell, Ron Johnson used to show up with the 12-pack, 6 of watered down Miller Lights and 6 good spotted cows. I'd usually drink a couple of the cows, and so would the senator. But there was a time, Dom. There was a time that we reached out and we befriended and felt good about being friends with Republicans, people that saw things differently, at least than I. I'll only speak for myself. You've always had a few Republican instincts. But that all changed with January 6th. The insurrection against the government, the Constitution, the vice presidency, the peaceful transfer of power.
It started to change with the election of Donald Trump, and it culminated. It finalized on January 6th.
So here's a little of our buddy Murphy's coverage of Brian Schimming from like two weeks ago, a couple weeks ago, February 1st. On January 6th, the 2-year anniversary of the Capitol riot, I'm doing it my style. Righty-whitey, radio talker, Dom's girl, Vicky McKenna. And that is literally your girl. I'm giving you all the credit for befriending Vicky on behalf of this panel.
You're welcome.
Right-wing radio talker Vicky McKenna did a show mocking the idea that an insurrection occurred, calling it a fantasy push by filthy, lying, despicable progressives.
Seditious conspiracy convictions already, more to come. But as Vicky McKenna would put it, a lie by filthy, despicable progressives.
And fine people like Crudy and Dom on both sides. The mix of invective and derangement was not unusual for McKenna, who makes Mark Belling seem subtle. But what was notable was the guest commentator on the show, the new Republican Party of Wisconsin chairman, Brian Schimming. I would point out, Dom, I did call Mr. Schimming today. Brian, come on the Devil's Advocates for old time's sake. He has not called me back. Maybe later in the show. We'll see. 844-967-2789. Dom, we have an open door policy.
Of course.
Schimming was elected to the position on December 10th, which some saw as a return to normalcy for a party which has been fertile ground for the sort of Trump-style demagoguery McKenna's show exemplified. As the liberal Cap Times in Madison editorialized, Schimming's election could be a hopeful development for Wisconsin politics. Tom, I said something similar.
Yeah, we talked about that. This is the cap times. They're not, they're not really the hardcore conservatives, let's put it.
Shimming is a product of the Thompson-era Republican Party, which is best aired on the side of positive appeals as opposed to the cutthroat strategies that have tended to characterize recent Republican campaigns. Brian, to this day, is a glad-handed, good old boy, right? A BSer. I like guys like him. Likes to talk. We're talking politics, talking life, talking whatever. Indeed, Shimming's resume reads like that of an old-school mainstream Republican, including years serving as the chief of staff for then Assembly Speaker David Prosser in the mid-90s, when they were committing the Capitol Caucus scandal, Dom. Not saying Shimming was ever charged or convicted, but a lot of people were.
It was all around him.
Followed by a job as the executive director of the Wisconsin Conservation Corps, which works on projects like trail restoration and stream bank stabilization. Next, he was chosen by Governor Tommy Thompson to serve as administrator at the Wisconsin Division of Housing and Intergovernmental Relations for about 4 years, followed by 10 years as a lobbyist. He was later appointed by Scotty Walker to be the deputy executive director and chief operating officer at the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority. Of course, Tom, that was just so they could, consolidate the parts. And Shimming is one of those classic party insiders who knows everybody there is to know. That includes one of my favorites, Tom. I think we should all know who Jim Troupis is.
Who's Jim Troupis, Curdy?
A longtime attorney, was part of the legal team hired by Republicans in crafting their 2011 gerrymandered redistricting plan. Troupis later served as Dane County Circuit Court judge appointed by Walker, and most recently as campaign attorney for Donald Trump, who handled the unsuccessful challenges in state courts of Joe Biden's 2020 election victory in Wisconsin. Now, we're going to talk about Janet Protasewicz. This song was actually for Judge Janet. We'll talk about her, talk about lots of things, but Brian Shimming, come on, man. I used to like you. Now you're in the Rojo column. Come back. More Devils.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
You can never go too far.
Oh, you nasty boys. I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah,
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
Mitch McConnell did make a public statement, right? After he voted to acquit, nothing says the president can't be prosecuted. Set the example for your caucus.
Convince your caucus as to why the man is not fit to serve. How do you not use your leadership to say, you guys, this is crazy. We can't do this, and here is exactly why. Because now, of the two major political parties, one of them is under the thumb of a fascist insurrectionist.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Weather on this snowy day in Madison could be brought to us by your pizza delivery business. Can you imagine how many families are snuggled in their homes enjoying hot, tasty pizza? Weather makes the phone ring for just $199 per week. Call us at 608-819-8255.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. Lows around 30 tonight, under cloudy skies, northwesterly winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. More clouds than sun tomorrow, highs around 43. Cloudy skies tomorrow night, a mixture of precipitation likely 33. Chance for mixed precipitation Wednesday, with highs in the mid-40s, cloudy Thursday. A dusting of snow tomorrow night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 35 degrees.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are are back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We can take your calls at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I feel like I've given an incomplete answer on who's Jim Troupis. Let me read on from the fine reporting of Bruce Murphy over at the online daily urbanmilwaukee.com. Jim Troupis was up to his ears in Trump's attempt to illegally overthrow the 2020 election. That's the more important part. As New York,
but more important than what? Working with Republicans on their gerrymandering plan.
Well,
right?
he gerrymandered the maps here in the state of Wisconsin. He led the recount effort to try and throw out 171,000 absentee ballots in Dane and Milwaukee counties, which would have effectively overturned the outcome of the election here. I believe Troupis was lead counsel in the 4-3 ruling that basically set aside their ask. And, the false elector scheme. He was also up to his, seditious eyebrows in that, Dom. Just 15 days after the election in 2020, Troupis was amongst the first to receive a memo, Dom, setting out what became the rationale for an audacious strategy. Someone called a coup. To put in place alternative slates of electors in key swing states where Trump had lost. The memo from another lawyer named Kenneth Cheeseborough was used by Trump's top lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and others as they developed a strategy to elect Trump-friendly alternative electors in states like Wisconsin. The strategy, the strategy ultimately failed, and Troupis was later sued for his role in the scheme. And Schimming was working with Troupis during this time, according to Andrew Hitt, the former Republican Party chair in Wisconsin. And apparently his criminal involvement, allegedly, Dom, hasn't discouraged Michael Best and Friedrich, one of the named Republican law firms, from hiring Andrew Hitt as senior counsel. But, that's their hiring decision. Let me read you more about...
Well, I would also know, wasn't there also a Michael Best and Friedrich attorney who was on the Georgia phone call as well that later ended up resigning?
Cleta Mitchell.
Cleta Mitchell, yeah.
Yes. No, that's not true. Foley and Laudner.
Oh, my bad. Thank you.
She was with Foley. According to Hitt, Schimming was involved in writing a statement regarding an alternative slate of, let me go back a little. I've left some of the best part out.
Please reiterate.
And Schimming was working with Troupis, remember the aforementioned Jim Troupis, during this time, according to Andrew Hitt, the former Republican Party chair in Wisconsin, an attorney in his own regard, as mentioned. He gave testimony to the January 6th committee. Schimming, quote, knows Mr. Troupis very well, Hitt said. Mr. Troupis is probably the preeminent guy in Wisconsin on election law and recounts. And Brian, Mr. Schimming, has done a lot of those recounts with him. And so he's brought on to help with the sort of coordination and to be sort of a right hand to Mr. Troupis and to work on communications type stuff and public affairs type issues for Mr. Troupis during the recount. Well, according to Hitt, Schimming was involved in writing a statement regarding an alternative slate of Wisconsin electors that would be meeting on December 14th at the state capitol. Hitt also testified that Schimming was on the conference call with Cheeseborough and Giuliani, and that Giuliani said they would make sure there is no press, no heads up to the media about the alternative electors meeting. Well, of course, that was after the Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled 4-3. As we've mentioned before, it was just the Hagedorn vote, Dom, that set aside the goal of throwing out 171,000 absentee ballots and basically changing the dynamic of Wisconsin voters' will and giving the election to Donald Trump, at least here in the state of Wisconsin. That had already been decided earlier on December 14th, before anyone cast a false elector ballot, Dom.
Crudy, no press, no heads up to the media, apparently worried Hitt, who texted Mark Jefferson, the Republican Party of Wisconsin's executive director, quote, these guys are up to no good. When asked, Hitt said he didn't know if Schimming pushed back against Giuliani when he said no media. In short, Schimming was involved in discussions with Giuliani about the slate of fake Wisconsin electors, but has avoided discussing this with the media. Schimming has also defended one of the 10 fake electors, Robert Spindell, after calls for the latter to step down from his position at the Wisconsin Election Commission, which came in reaction to Urban Milwaukee's story quoting Spindell email to Republicans where he bragged about GOP efforts to reduce Black and Hispanic turnout in Milwaukee. Quote, perhaps Spindell's statements weren't as artfully put as they could be, but I don't doubt that what he means is that we're going to continue to work those neighborhoods and other neighborhoods in Milwaukee. Schimming said in an interview with Wisconsin Public Television. Then there was Schimming's appearance on a long Vicki McKenna show. Troopus was also a guest, where she claimed no Trump protesters were involved in January 6th violence. These were, quote, middle-aged Trump supporters who were wandering the Capitol grounds, McKenna claimed, while President Biden's statements about January 6th was a charade about an insurrection that never happened. By then, 978 people who participated in the riot had been charged with federal crimes, and 475 had pleaded guilty, but McKenna insisted repeatedly that this was an insurrection that never happened, a story made up by liberals. Quote, lies are the currency of the left. She fulminated. Schimming was her last guest on the show and exchanged a chit-chat. What that made it clear that they were old friends in between pushing the lie that there was no January 6th insurrection. Schimming noted he has had people in Milwaukee ask him about this, and he says, look, I had multiple friends that went out there to protest. For you to call them insurrectionists is obscene. They're everyday folks that were upset about the election. I'm not making excuses for those who went in and violated the law. But McKenna quickly noted that there were none who violated the law, bashing purposefully dishonest liberals because not a single one of them was an insurrectionist. It's all a hoax perpetrated by filthy, lying, despicable progressives to obliterate the First Amendment, she charged. Well, said Schimming, well, they have to perpetuate this. Schimming, well, I think I understand why you kind of got that queasy feeling, Creedy, but you guys looked really happy in the photo.
Don't I always seem happy? Call me Mr. Happy. Come back. More Devil's Advocates. Make me happy. Call us. 844-96-PARTY.
Looking for more local programming? Check out our website, civicmedia.us, to see our entire lineup.
ABC News, I'm Rena Roy. In East Palestine, Ohio today, officials meeting with local business owners to determine what the community needs to move forward after a toxic train derailment.
Everybody keep the receipts, whether they're testing their well or their hotel rooms or the cleanup, that everyone keeps the receipts, and I will make sure that Norfolk Southern is accountable.
Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown guarantees Norfolk Southern will reimburse residents. A reported tornado tore a path of destruction through Norman, Oklahoma overnight. Here's Police Chief Kevin Foster.
We have several homes, businesses, and schools that appear to have some damage from the storm.
Over 40 states from the Midwest to the Northeast are on alert for severe weather. The Canadian government is now the latest to ban TikTok on mobile devices issued to employees. Last week, the European Union banned the video sharing app from phones used by employees. On Wall Street, the Dow gained 72 points at the close. This is ABC News.
Your morning. Thanks for listening to your local Civic Media radio station. Learn more on our website, civicmedia.us.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Natnair. Here's what you need to know. After a quiet weekend of weather across the state, another winter storm is bringing rain, ice, and snow. Central and southeastern Wisconsin could see as much as 1.5 inches of rain over the course of the day, and with much of the ground still frozen, that makes it tougher for rain to seep into the ground or find storm drains. This could cause minor flooding in some areas, as well as water backing up into basements. Lower temperatures across the central part of Wisconsin could cause freezing rain that might impact travel and cause power outages. The northern counties with the potential to see 2 to 6 inches of snow and some ice during today's storm. A 56-year-old Pewaukee man who died recently while hiking in Grand Canyon National Park was a retired Waukesha County Sheriff's deputy. Scott McDonald was found unresponsive along a trail on February 17th. He was pronounced dead by National Park Service search and rescue personnel. I'm Jane Natnair. This is Civic Media News.
Civic Media promised you something big to celebrate our new and still growing network of radio stations. When we announced the one-day $1 million advertising giveaway for Wisconsin businesses, you responded.
Just wanted to echo your sentiments about the advertising. That's really a cool deal and really remarkable.
$1 million of free advertising. Now, if you missed this chance to work with our team, go to civicmedia.us and click on the sponsorship tab. One of our local sales pros will get right back to you. civicmedia.us and sponsorship.
Hey, Darcy, I just saw the perfect house. Can you help me write an offer on it?
I'd be happy to, Brian. Did you see it at an open house?
No, I just called the sign and had the agent show it to me. I didn't want to bug you.
Brian, how many times have you heard me say don't call the sign?
All of them.
You called the agent working for the seller, and once you see the property with that agent, I'm no longer free to write an offer on it.
So...
You need to hire us from the beginning, help you find the right home, negotiate on your behalf, and protect your interests all the way through the process, and it shouldn't cost you a dime.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Find them at solidarityrealty.com.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Here's today's STEM tip. Don't throw out that old plastic bottle. Repurpose it by turning it into an awesome terrarium. Just fill it with sand, pebbles, soil, and your favorite plant. It'll grow sealed right in its own ecosystem. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. It's a get your ass back to work Monday, Salvia. And the audience also calling on you, challenging you to do your part at 844-967-2789. We'll get to you first, Rick. Be patient just a moment longer. Don, we are going to talk about Dan Kelly and sort of in conclusion on Brian Schimming.
Yeah, the new Wisconsin party chair for the Republicans.
He is a nice guy, but he's right in there with right-wing talk radio. I mean, he told me, I told him, I said, I've been driving the state of Wisconsin, Brian, and it's amazing the number of places you pop up on the right-wing talk radio dial. You're in Wausau, you're in the cities, the Fox Valleys. All of a sudden you're sitting in for Vicky or you're filling in for Dan O'Donnell. Man, you're everywhere. He's like, oh, yeah. And you should see the ratings that lady up in Wausau gets in the morning show. Of course I fill in. Because right-wing talk radio supports their, not just their mission, but the lies they tell, Dom. And, you know, if you're Brian Schimming, you got to look the other way and
come on.
Accept a few of the lies that Vicky McKenna is selling.
Let's be frank. If there was not the platform of the right-wing talk radio, they'd be just a bunch of crazy people in the middle of the park on top of their soapboxes with nobody listening to them. But the fact that they're on the radio and the fact that they're spread out all over the place and they don't, or up until this point, have not really received a whole lot of pushback from others who maybe, you know, don't think what they're saying is true. I mean, how can you possibly say that there was nothing there when you literally have people convicted of a seditious conspiracy? So either she knew about it and was lying, or she didn't know and was ignorant. Either way, is that someone you want to take advice from? Is that someone you want to listen to, a lying / and or ignorant person telling you things that are not true?
Talking about Vicky McKenna now?
Yes.
You recall last time I saw Vicky McKenna in person. She was up there at the Wisconsin State Capitol. David A. Clark Jr., her colleague, and they were soon to be charging the mount at Robin Voss's office, I believe. You know, sort of a maskless AR-15 armed, anti-vaccine, stop the steal. All the grievances kind of glommed together.
Yeah, right.
And you'll recall Vicky McKenna, I think I told this story, Dom. Vicky McKenna threw a big old hug on me. I'm thinking, have you mistaken me for another?
We're all peers in the radio industry. I mean, I guess. And I've gotten plenty of hugs from Vicky in the past as well, but not since the insurrection, man. I got a little bit of a problem with this. I mean, for real, man. Look what's happening to Fox News. Finally, it's coming out. You see what's happening. I mean, how do you possibly tell your audience that that didn't happen? And then, all of a sudden you find out there's seditious conspiracy convictions. Well, both of those things are not true.
Well, anyways, Vicky introduced me to her friend, David A. Clark Jr., who had been on the show a couple times. And Vicky and
Pitchfork and torches guy in America. Yeah.
And Vicky and I talked about the whether or not one should get vaccinated. And Vicky, of course, was greatly against it. And I said, well, Vicky, what if you're wrong? What if? What's the downside of being vaccinated against the COVID pandemic? What's the bad? I said, because if you're wrong, you could die.
Microchips.
I don't know.
Does she have an answer for you?
Not sufficient. Not one that really seemed rational or logical to me. But you know why Vicky thinks I like her? Because at that one radio panel, the Milwaukee Magazine radio panel.
When they shut her down after Black Lives Matter.
Well, earlier in the panel, remember they said, can anyone say something nice about someone else on the panel? And no one said anything nice about Vicky. So finally I just came out and blurted out, well, she's a workhorse. She's a workaholic. She works her ass off. She does like 5 hours of conspiracy laden radio a day. That takes some effort.
That it does. That it does.
You gotta let your mind wander for hours just to come up with some of those conspiracies. I effectively called her a workaholic workhorse. And that's the nicest thing anyone had ever said about her. So
doing 5 hours on the radio is a long time to talk and process. I will give you that.
Hanging out with you 2 hours a day seems like an eternity.
You're welcome.
Rick from Phoenix, how you doing, man? Welcome back.
Hey, Rick.
Hello. I've been listening to you guys since before what would have been the Democratic convention. And I was looking forward to my first trip to Wisconsin. But anyway, I'll just enjoy the Brewers fans during spring training.
All right.
I wanted to give you a heads up that your newest, most dangerous right-wing insurgency is not the new Republican Party chairman. It is the Jimmy Haslam crime family. Jimmy Haslam just bought the Lazary portion of the Milwaukee Bucks.
And why do you say that, Rick? I know he's a big sports franchise owner. Apparently he owns a piece of the Cleveland Browns and some minor league soccer programs. But what's this guy? I mean, other than getting rich, owning sports franchises, why is he a crime family guy?
Well, let's start with the big crime. He and his brother, Bill Haslam, then the governor of Tennessee, stole $88 million from small business owners. And they pled guilty to it and paid a $92 million fine to the United States Justice Department. The NFL did not take any disciplinary action against him. He's a very, very, very wing Republican who thinks he's smart. He even tried a quick one in the 2012 general election campaign. He brings Condoleezza Rice to the Browns practice, thinking that she was going to win over the players. That's just one, but they spent a ton of money on extreme right-wing politics and politicians all over the country, and they like to do it dressed up as community leaders. And when you look at the Pilot Flying J scandal, it was a very, very, very closed good old boy network with none of the diversity that he claims he is now a big part of. So if you go back and you look at the FEC filings, you will see a list of the right-wing extremists that he has donated to and donated heavily. And it's not just him. The reason I refer to it as the Jimmy Haslam crime family is it's his wife, it's his son-in-law, it's his daughter. It's a thick list.
You know, I had not even thought to start looking there, but I appreciate the heads up. Now I'll have to start looking there a little further.
And I recall, Rick, the Flying J, that's the, like, 600 these gas station truck stop kind of places, right? And that's where the crime occurred.
What they did by law, everyone has to pay the same price at the pump. So what they did was they came up with a rebate program for trucking companies. And they skimmed the rebate from the small trucking companies that did not have sophisticated accounting departments.
Well, it's funny. Any couple, in this case, Jimmy and Dee Haslam, that would co-host a fundraiser for J.D. Vance, the hillbilly elegy guy, now the senator from
correct.
Ohio. Yeah, he seems like an unsavory sort, Rick.
Thanks
but
heads up, Rick. Damn.
Here's the question, though. Alex Lasry's father, Mark Lasry, Alex obviously has been somewhat political on his own regard. He has used some of the family wealth, or at least some that extended down to his generation, to run for U.S. Senate from the state of Wisconsin. Spent $15 or $16 million. How do we shake a fist at the Haslams giving money to the right? But we weren't shaking a fist at the Lasrys. At least most people in Wisconsin weren't. A lot of people were cashing those checks or hoping that guy would be the senatorial candidate.
Well, people have to make up their own minds, but they should have the facts for which to make their decision. And the Haslams are, I think, among the worst corporate ilk there is in the country with their approach, and they are leaving Pilot Flying J, Berkshire Hathaway, and they will be leaving Pilot Flying J totally, I do believe, this year. So they have a ton of money.
Yeah, apparently they do. Browns owner Haslam mixes Republican politics with football, and now he's the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks. Thank goodness. We, the state taxpayers, the great state of Wisconsin, are only on the hook for $250 million that built that beautiful stadium. I've been there; it's gorgeous. And the Bucks franchise, they've lifted themselves to new success. Of course, league championship, and 13 straight, something like that. They're
14 now.
Red hot.
Yes, selling at the peak. I mean, I can't say I blame them, but I would say this: it matters who you're giving your money to. It matters what's happening. I mean, if a guy like Lasry wants to spend his own money to run for office, okay, but is he financing, 3%ers? You know what I'm saying? I think it matters what you do with the money. So if someone has hey, I don't want, I pay too many taxes and I want someone who's going to support me not paying taxes. I mean, okay. I mean, I get that. That's a position to take. It's a legitimate stance that people have. Everyone has an opinion about those kinds of things. But what I don't think there should be an opinion about is whether or not it's acceptable to try to overturn the will of the people in an insurrection. I don't think it's okay for seditious conspiracy. So if you're one of those people who are involved, you have those resources, and you're feeding money to those organizations, to that thing, the GOP is gone, man. It's MAGA now. And that's what they've done. And if you're down with the MAGA, if you're down with seditious conspiracy, I don't care how rich you are or how many professional bald teams you own. You should be held account and should be criticized for that.
Okay.
Thanks for the call, Rick.
Well,
yes. Defend it. You can't. That's
I'm not trying to defend it. Here's what I would say.
Yes, go ahead. No.
That rant's great. What I think Rick from Phoenix brought to us was information I was not aware of. I mean, this is new breaking news in the state of Wisconsin. There is a big chunk of the Bucks ownership group that is changing hands between Mark Lasry and Alex Lasry is his son, and this Haslam guy who's got a history of doing Republican politics and apparently got a bad reputation, certainly with Rick and Phoenix. So I will have to do more research on, but we publicly supported the stadium when it was the Democrat, and it was a Republican governor that pitched the whole cheaper to keep them, right? It's cheaper to keep them. We got to keep this team. Of course, there was an outside funding source for this stadium, as we've talked about. It was the Menominee Tribes Casino in partnership with the Hard Rock. They offered $250 million if Scott Walker just did the right thing and allowed them to create 10,000 ongoing permanent jobs, a new funding revenue for the poorest tribe in the state of Wisconsin. And Walker said no and put us, the taxpayers, on the hook for $250 million. Well, I got to tell you, I'm still a little taken aback by that. It bothers me. And it doesn't feel a lot better when Tony Evers offers Mark Antanasio and the Milwaukee Brewers ownership group $300 million in stadium refurbishments, upgrades, and suites and new seats in the stadium. Well, you know what? These are very wealthy franchises. And I would say the dynamics of the Bucks franchise, you're only carrying 12 players. Carry a few more in baseball. Higher facility cost in baseball and a minor league system. You don't have to do all that in the major league of basketball. In the NBA, the most profitable franchises right now, I would suspect, are, well, NBA or NFL franchises,
NFL,
right?
man.
But why are we publicly lifting this franchise? We, the taxpayers, why are we on the hook? And then Lasry cashes out. And maybe I would have been okay because Lasry and the family, they're good Dems. But now all of a sudden it's a Republican. And it was the Republican governor giving it to the Democratic funders. And you know what? The rich people get richer, man, and the rest of us keep paying the bill. And yet socialism is a bad word.
It depends on who you ask and when you ask it.
When's the last time anyone said, oh, it's cheaper to keep these working class jobs here? Think of Oshkosh trucks. Think of a lot of these jobs. We never
Senator Johnson said
those
we
jobs.
don't need those. We don't need those jobs here. They can go somewhere else.
Come back, more Devil's Advocates. Perhaps a secret special caller. I see her right now. 844-967-2789.
It is pitchfork and torches time in America.
That guy.
I asked what kind of family she wanted. She said, a family like yours.
Learn more about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Cardall put out these weird, sad videos interviewing incapacitated elders in their nursing homes that don't have the ability to say, don't use me as your political prop.
If they are what you say they are, then you shouldn't be doing it how you did it.
Yes, it was the kids using the parents as props. Well, my old man hasn't talked since 76. Of course, he would have voted for Trump. That's the evidence. Videos. People that can't talk.
It is wrong. It's absolutely wrong.
Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
if you could find a way,
To get inside.
each other's mind.
walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Weather on this snowy day could be brought to us by your business. Can you imagine how many ice augers and fishing shanties are being bought as we speak? Weather sponsorships make the phone ring. Call us at 608-819-8255.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. Lows around 30 tonight, under cloudy skies, northwesterly winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. More clouds than sun tomorrow, highs around 43. Cloudy skies tomorrow night, a mixture of precipitation likely 33. Chance for mixed precipitation Wednesday, with highs in the mid-40s, cloudy Thursday. A dusting of snow tomorrow night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 35 degrees.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open. Going there next. 844-967-2789. Got our pal Maggie Dawn on the line. She calls when she's got something to say. Maggie, happy Monday. What do you got for us today?
Hey guys, hope you're doing well.
Yes, thank you.
Just wanted to kind of, disagree with Mike a little bit about the effectively bargaining power asymmetry that public entities like Milwaukee County, the city, or the state have when it comes to trying to negotiate with professional sports franchises. And the reality is we have no bargaining power or leverage. If you want to keep the teams in these jurisdictions. They just demand incredible facilities, and they demand, frankly, tax breaks or taxpayer-funded contributions to what they're trying to build or update. That's just the nature of that marketplace, if you will, right? Limited supply and a lot of demand. So they're, frankly, I think the word would be extort those things, right? The economic question that has to be asked is, do those franchises return, whether it's in jobs, revenue, visitation, tax base, all that, do they return more to the communities and the taxpayers that help fund those facilities for them? And I think in Milwaukee, we're seeing that the answer to that has been yes, both for the Brewers and for the Bucks and in spades. So yes, there's a sort of shocking quality to a billionaire asking taxpayers to fund a stadium upgrade or what have you. But the question has to be, do those franchises return more to the communities in terms of overall revenue?
Maggie Dawn.
Again, in our
so now you're taking the Scott Walker, cheaper to keep them perspective, but you are Milwaukee County Corporate Counsel. You are more insightful on this topic than perhaps the average listener might be. But let me ask you, Milwaukee County, not County Stadium, American Family Field now. You got a big, brand new, shiny sponsor. And the governor of the state of Wisconsin, apparently the Democratic governor, is expending political capital by espousing this need to invest $300 million of the taxpayers' money in a 30-year lease. Well, that would lock the Brewers in for an additional 10 years. I didn't hear any talk of the Brewers leaving the city of Milwaukee. I didn't even know that Antanasio was currently threatening the state or the city with any of those consequences. So why is the governor pitching $300 million in state funding? I mean, sell it lottery tickets, raise the property, the sales tax again in the 5 counties if necessary. But Maggie Dawn, putting it on the state payroll, on the tax roll, that's going to be very unpalatable. And Robin Voss and ilk are going to make hay with that.
Yeah, I think we got to view this, and you touched upon it, Mike, in a broader context of how is the state's relationship with Milwaukee County and municipalities. And I'm going to focus on Milwaukee County and the city. As you well know, and as we've talked about so many times, is that we have funding formulas here in Wisconsin that are nearly unique within the United States, and unique in the fact that they almost eliminate local government's ability entirely to raise their own revenues. And so if you look at this in the context of a $7 billion state surplus, the state having underfunded state functions that local governments carry out here in Milwaukee County, within the larger context of a potential sales tax and a correction to our shared revenue formulas, I think the governor may see this as an opportunity to ensure that the Brewers remain an economic engine for Milwaukee County. The political rollout, the political management, listen, you've never heard me accuse Tony Evers of being a master politician, right? Like, that's just not it. So I think there was a bit of a misstep. And we'll see how costly that is in terms of the way that the governor's talking about this. I think the way that I just laid it out is the way that you have to talk about this. And listen, Mike, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that I think it's right that the billionaire class can extort taxpayers to help fund their little pet investments into professional sports franchises. I'm simply observing that that is the state of play.
Maggie Dawn, I got a couple of minutes left in the segment. I want to ask you a question on the economics of it all. Now, this entity that was created for the Brewers stadium, they stopped collecting that additional sales tax, right? They apparently have like $80 million, in the bank, but they need to come up with like $400 million in improvements to fulfill the terms of the lease. Well, to me, if you got 80 million, if you're upside down $320 million when lease negotiations come back around, whoever made the call, whoever made the decision, whatever math was done on the front end seemed to be very, very wrong. Your thoughts?
Well, you have to look at how they were estimating those costs and what that tax was intended to cover, right? If the tax, as I think your question sort of implies, was intended to cover these significant $100 million multiple improvements to the facility over time, and that was a guaranteed lease obligation, right? Somebody should be responsible for that crappy math. I have a suspicion, I wasn't part of that deal, I had nothing to do with it at the time. I have a suspicion that that's probably not the way the tax was structured. But certainly as a starting point, I think we could all agree that whatever portion of that $400 million, if that's really the cost for the improvements that are guaranteed under the lease, yeah, let's start with the $80 million. And then you also have to ask that question about, year over year operating costs and how is that getting funded, but we're in the weeds here. But as a general point, Dom, I certainly agree with what was that tax intended to cover in terms of long-term expenses, and did it get calculated wrong? The other question that could be asked, I think very simply, is did we overpromise in the lease? Right? There is this urgency that will happen with deals of this magnitude where current policymakers will write checks today, right, that their bodies can't cash as a body politic, right, in a few years. And I think that has to be a question. People get excited, we're going to get it done. And then the organization comes back and says, we want a guarantee of these sorts of improvements. And everybody goes, that's a tomorrow problem, right? And that's that short-sightedness that we see in most elected officials.
Maggie Dawn, a rare treat calling in on a school day. We appreciate you doing so, Maggie Dawn. We got a few more. We're going to keep moving. Ross from Crawford County. Ross, welcome. Give you a few minutes. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys. So I was thinking about that train accident. I know it's a little change of subject. That train accident, when some of us look at these accidents, we say, well, what happened? Was it human error? In this case, it looks like there was a fault in the train itself, which could have been remediated by some funding that was specifically intended for things like improving braking, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, this accident happened in East Palestine, Ohio. That congressperson is a guy named Jim Johnson, a Republican, been there for 10 years or more. And isn't it interesting that when I went to his webpage and all he's biatching about is why isn't FEMA in there and kind of, creating a FEMA fund? When I think to myself, where were you when they were asking for funding on improving the safety of these trains? And, it's just so frustrating because, I think of East Palestine as the same thing as maybe like up by Oshkosh.
Buddy, it's happening all over. The rich get richer and the rest of us get Scrooged. More Devil's Advocates, a happier happy hour. Fox News making some admissions on the record.
Don't you deserve a job you love? Civic Media is preserving hometown radio, broadcasting from main streets across Wisconsin, and we're hiring radio advertising sales professionals to join our rapidly growing network of local radio stations. If you have a connection to your community, prior sales experience, and want to earn an outstanding living where you and your hard work is appreciated, you should apply right now. Find more information on our website, civicmedia.us. Click on the Careers tab.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season, to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season, to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
You're listening to Mad Radio, WMDX 1580 AM Columbus, W224EG Madison, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
ABC News, I'm Andy Field. The White House says there is no consensus about where COVID-19 came from. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
There's not been a definitive conclusion, so it's difficult for me to say, nor should I feel like I should have to defend press reporting about a possible preliminary indication here.
The Energy Department issuing what it calls a low confidence conclusion that COVID had leaked from a Chinese lab. A week after President Biden made an unannounced visit to Kyiv, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen traveled to the Ukrainian capital, meeting with President Zelensky, reassuring the U.S. commitment to the war-torn nation. Ohio officials met with business leaders in East Palestine, asking what the community needs to move past the toxic train derailment. Several million Americans in more than 40 states on alert for severe weather, possible tornadoes across the plains to snow in the upper Midwest and Northeast. Stocks closing higher to start the week. This is ABC News. The name Jackie Robinson is known around the world, except maybe in the city where he played for a decade.
With much fanfare in April of last year, Major League Baseball honored the great Jackie Robinson, marking 75 years since he broke the color barrier with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Here in New York, Robinson has a highway in Queens named after him. It's called the Jackie Robinson Parkway. Except when they put a new sign up over the weekend, it read the Jakey Robinson Parkway. Somebody forgot to put the C in Jackie's name. We're not sure who, but the New York Transportation Department says it's being fixed immediately. Sherry Preston, ABC News, New York.
New editions of James Bond books will be edited to remove racist references to black people. Publisher says the new edition of Ian Fleming's work will also carry a disclaimer. However, dated descriptions of other ethnicities remain. Those books being re-released to mark 70 years since Casino Royale, the first book in the series. Andy Field, ABC News.
From the Devil's Advocates to the Cripes Cast with Charlie Barron.
You want a hot dog? You're not invited to my cookout that's for guests, aren't you? We're doing brats.
This is Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX. On air at 92.7 megahertz frequency modulation and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. This is Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. Most kids in Wisconsin don't read or write as well as they should. On Thursday, 2 committees of the state legislature will hear testimony from literacy experts from the Department of Public Instruction and the University of Wisconsin. $10 million is the record for spending on a Wisconsin Supreme Court race. So far, this spring's candidates and outside groups have spent more than $7.3 million. Dan Kelly is getting help from Republicans who say much is at stake.
Janet Protasiewicz's attempt to turn back 25 years of reform in this state, including on school choice, Act 10, concealed carry, voter ID.
Brian Schimming is chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party. He was on Up Front yesterday. In sports, Mark Lassery has an agreement to sell his share of the Bucks to Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam for about $3.5 billion. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Hey everybody, how we doing? I'm Charlie Barons, inviting you to join me Saturdays and or Sundays at noon. It's a horse apiece, whatever you decide. We're doing the Cripes Cast, where we talk to people for and or from the Midwest, and it's more fun than a 6-pack of Jolly Good. Okay, the pride of Random Lake, that Jolly Good is. Anyway, it's on your Civic Media station and the Civic Media app. And do me a favor, tell your folks I says hi. Okay, real good.
The bakers of Country Hearth and Village Hearth Breads are proud to support local education with Loaves for Learning, the program that makes it easy to earn money for your school. Enjoy Country Hearth and Village Hearth all-natural breads, buns, bagels, and more. Then save the UPC from the package for your school to collect and redeem. Each is worth 5 cents and can be used for books, computers, sports, music, whatever your school needs. Up to $10,000 a year. Learn more at loavesforlearning.com. Country Hearth and Village Hearth Breads, baking our best for you.
I'm Deborah Green, a Midwest girl born and raised. I began my career as a social worker, and now I serve as a permanent substitute teacher with a school in Wisconsin. My work with students and youth spans over 30 years. After listening to me talk about my vision for young people, others know how passionate I am about their success. Students are capable of taking on the world and doing something with it. So let's talk about it. Straight talk, no chaser, good people. Enjoy Kicking It in the Kitchen with me, Deborah Green.
The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
When we got back from the Working Class Heroes radio tour, one of the things that people asked is, what'd you learn? As you're going through rural America, what'd you find? Found angry people, and angry for cause. But the sad reality is they've been fed decades of outrage, Candy, and they're angry at the wrong people. They're angry at their neighbors. They're not angry at the very wealthy, where they should be. Be sure to tune in live weeknights, 8 to 10 p.m. across the Civic Media Radio Network and have your voice heard.
I'm Pat Kreitlow from Up North News. On an earlier edition, we talked to 3 women, med students, about whether they're going to stay in Wisconsin to practice medicine.
All of this Roe v. Wade stuff, and now OBGYN's hands are so tied. I don't want to go through 12 years of training to have some person that didn't do training tell me how to do my job.
It is not a binary choice. You're for or against abortion. It is a healthcare decision. We all have those stories, and people want to hear them.
Don't miss the real stories here on Up North News.
Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dama, get your ass back to work Monday. But now it's the happy hour. We dragged our way through the workday. Now it's just fun.
All right. Well done, everybody.
You know, you can all join us for the happy hour. We welcome your calls. 844-967-2789. I can assure you, predicated on a few of the recent ones, they're barely screened. Barely. Dom, you got some gleeful news. You know, sometimes, and this is a character flaw of mine, I take glee in the pain of others, but only in corporate personhood, in that, you know, corporations are people, my friends, right? Well, Foxy News, they're in the blues. Some bad news, Dom. And I find this to be the most interesting place to lead.
It's not you're not finding glee in their pain, man. I mean, you're finding glee that the truth is coming out. Clarity is what you find so joyous.
You're somewhere closer, but it is still a character flaw that I take glee in others' pain. Occasionally, occasionally.
When you say it like that, it just sounds so bad.
Fox News refusing ad featuring their host's election lies. Now, Dom, recently we've gone through a quandary here. You know that Mike Crute got very pushy and encouraged others in this corporate civic media-dom to take Dan Kelly ads, Wisconsin Supreme Court race, because I wanted Dan Kelly in the general of the two Republican-supported candidates. He's got awful.
We played lots and lots and lots of Dan Kelly, hard right Republican ads on civic media.
I guarantee every nickel spent by Dan Kelly's super PAC was reinvested in building a Death Star of fuzzy, soft blanket hood across the state of Wisconsin. But let's talk about our opponents, Tom. Foxy News.
Our media peers?
Well, they're not our peers. We're peerless, Tom. Fox News refusing ad featuring their host election lies. I would just point out, we haven't refused any ads recently around here. If you find election lies and you want to buy ads on this radio network holding up the lies of Dom and Crute, I will take your money. I challenge you to find us telling a lie.
Yeah, right.
The day after Fox News, a Fox News host complained on air that the network is not letting him address the text and emails between employees that are part of the legal brief in the $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit filed by Dominion Voting Systems. The network is balking at selling commercial time to a progressive group armed with an ad that features some choice Fox personality quotes from the filing. Well, Tom, let's start with the Howard Kurtz. Let's start with Fox News on Fox News. Howard Kurtz, we're going to need your help here, E-Bone. If you're not screening any calls at the moment, let's play the Howard Kurtz basically saying my employer won't allow me to cover my employer, the Foxy News. Play it for the people.
Some of you have been asking why I'm not covering the Dominion voting machines lawsuit against Fox involving the unproven claims of election fraud in 2020. And it's absolutely a fair question. I believe I should be covering it. It's a major media story, given my role here at Fox. But the company has decided that as part of the organization being sued, I can't talk about it or write about it, at least for now. I strongly disagree with that decision, but as an employee, I have to abide by it. And if that changes, I'll let you know.
Howard Kurtz, he's a Fox News media analyst, and he hosts the show Media Buzz. I mean, it seems like this would be something in his wheelhouse.
They're buzzing about it. I'm buzzing about it, Tom. It's all the buzz. We're talking about it at the water cooler. But Dom, now Fox doesn't want the topic to be part of the advertising on their shows. Ooh, do tell more. As the Daily Beast, Justin Baragona wrote, Move On is claiming they try to buy airtime, ad time, and they were rebuffed. The commercial, which Move On said they hope to run nationally on the right-wing network, spotlights a slew of attacks from the recent legal filing by Dominion Voting Systems in its $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against the Foxy News. Again, that's the reporting of the Daily Beast. For their part, Move On posted the ad on Twitter with the following statement. Fox News refused, all caps, sort of Trumpian in that way. Fox News refused to air our ad, which quotes emails and texts from its host showing they intentionally presented false allegations about election fraud to keep ratings and profits up. It's time to drop Fox from cable and satellite. Well, that's what they say, Dom.
Well, let's unpack this a little bit. What was your initial reaction, Curdy, when you heard this Howard Kurtz lamenting the fact that he couldn't report on his employer's news story?
My truthful reaction?
Yeah, yes. No, lie to me, man. No, of course. Yeah. What was your gut reaction?
I would not want or allow, if my corporation, let's say we're a partner in a media network, if my corporation were being sued, I probably would not want reporters from my organization turning that light back upon my organization during the course of the lawsuit. I obviously would feel like anytime we were being sued, we would be vindicated, because if we were in the wrong, we would have settled in some way, shape, or form. We wouldn't have taken it to a court of law. We don't defame people. We don't tell lies, and we don't slander people. So if I felt like we had some point of contention in a court of law that, the lawyers were advising us not to talk about, then I wouldn't allow my media reporter to turn the spotlight back on my organization if I had the control. If I were Rupert Murdoch,
and I get that, and my reaction, while is totally understandable, and I get where Howard Kurtz is coming from, and I appreciate your position as well. But it seems, pardon, a little bit to me like McCarthy not appointing any Republican to the January 6th committee. I mean, you have no one in the room. There's nobody to push back. I mean, if in your scenario, Crudy, certainly we would not defame people or tell the lies and never be in the situation. I would think, hell, we'd scream it from the rooftops. Yes, report on it. And here's the quote from the CEO, and here's the quote from the attorney. Here's what the judge said today, and here was the internal documents to prove our case, to defend ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Without that,
but you defend yourself in a court. Not in the court of public opinion.
This is literally the guy's job is media. His program is the media buzz. This is one of the biggest cases in media in the history of the world, and you're not even going to let your people report on what even new, just objectively. Here's what happened today.
No, absolutely, I would not, and for differing reasons, because I would feel like I'm being told by counsel, don't let it happen. But in this case, I feel like it's totally contrary, Dom. It's not that they're chomping at the bit to exonerate themselves, because there will be no exoneration for Fox News. In fact, Dom, every freaking headline just pounds on the point that Fox News knew what they were doing. They were spinning election conspiracy theories for fun and profit, according to the head of Fox News. That's slightly different than how we try to run the civic media. I don't know, I'm just the president. But Fox chief Rupert Murdoch said that network aired 2020 election conspiracies for the money, Dom.
No.
New court documents from a lawsuit by Dominion Voting Systems against the Foxy News were released on Monday, revealing even more details about the head of the network allegedly prioritizing money over truth. Reuters reported ahead of the document drop that each side is submitting a filing saying that they oppose the other's motion for summary judgment, which would prevent an actual trial. Dominion sued Fox News Network and parent company Fox Corp in March of 2021 and November of 21 in Delaware Superior Court, alleging the cable TV network amplified false claims that Dominion voting machines were used to rig the 2020 elections, against former President Donald Trump, the Republican who lost to Joe Biden. By contrast, Dominion argues that the internal communications and depositions from Fox personnel, here's their quote from their filing, Dom, prove the network knowingly spread falsehoods about Trump's loss in the 2020 U.S. presidential election in order to bolster its ratings. That is very supportable by the evidence and the depositions and the text messages that we are seeing in the public reporting, Dom. This part is true. So I got to think the Fox News request that this all be set aside, Tom, I got to think it's going to be dismissed by the judge, but what the hell do I know?
Cody, in one excerpt from Rupert Murdoch's deposition, Rupert confirmed that he could tell FNN, Fox News Network, to stop running Lindell's advertisements, but I'm not about to, quote unquote. And when asked why Fox continues to give a platform to Lindell, who continues to this day to spout lies about Dominion, Murdoch agreed that it's not red or blue, it's green. Lindell bought and brings Fox a lot of green. He also predictably brought the same lies about Dominion to Fox's viewers that had been peddled on Fox's alternate reality machine for months. At one point, the documents have an exchange between Murdoch and the lawyers where he dodges questions about the network taking the position about around the election being stolen. Question. You are aware now that Fox did more than simply host these guests and give them a platform, correct? Murdoch's answer. I think you've shown me some material in support of that. The question. In fact, you are now aware that Fox endorsed at times this false notion of a stolen election. Murdoch's reply, not Fox. No, not Fox. Maybe Lou Dobbs, maybe Maria as commentators. Question. We went through Fox host Maria Bartiromo. Yes? Murdoch. Yes, come on. Question. Fox host Gene Pirro? I think so. How about Lou Dobbs? Oh, a lot. Fox host Sean Hannity? A bit. All were in that document, correct? Yes, they were. About Fox endorsing a narrative of a stolen election, correct? No, some of our commentators were endorsing it. About their endorsement of a stolen election? Murdoch, yes, they endorsed.
Come back, more Devil's Advocates. You can endorse us by listening.
You sit on a throne of lies.
There has never been so many lies, so much deception.
You're not too cool for me. And in return, I reciprocate that sentiment. I'll never be too cool for you. I was a man with a plan, but now I'm a dad with a decree, and you can't take that from me. Please let it be noted that I told my job they can dock my pay. Right now, it's just too important to take you to school every day. I want to be legendary for you. I want you to puff out your chest when you go to school, the same way I do. I walk taller because of you, because I found everything to live for.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Douglas LaFollette, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Good to be here, Mike. Across the country, in most every state, the Secretary of State is the person who is in charge of the election. And we've seen lots of hanky-panky in Florida back during the Al Gore elections, in Ohio and Georgia and Arizona and Michigan.
We appreciate you coming around, sir.
Check out the entire podcast library at darnwi.com.
My early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
But it gave my mom and me more time to plan, together.
Talk to your family about seeing a doctor. Go to alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Weather on this snowy day in Madison could be brought to us by your pizza delivery business. Can you imagine how many families are snuggled in their homes enjoying hot, tasty pizza? Weather makes the phone ring for just $199 per week. Call us at 608-819-8255.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. Lows around 30 tonight, under cloudy skies, northwesterly winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. More clouds than sun tomorrow, highs around 43. Cloudy skies tomorrow night, a mixture of precipitation likely 33. Chance for mixed precipitation Wednesday, with highs in the mid-40s, cloudy Thursday. A dusting of snow tomorrow night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 35 degrees.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Join us on the lines, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, the depositions and the filings by the Dominion Voting Systems in their case, this defamation case against Fox News. I mean, every headline more damning than the last. Here's the headline that intrigues me at the moment. The day before the January 6th attack, top Fox executives discussed whether to make primetime hosts dispel election lies. I forget, Dom. Did they carry through on the plan or not? I think it was no, but let's read. Among the key comments revealed by Dominion Voting Systems in their court filing Monday was the revelation that News Corp chairman Rupert Murdoch and Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott discussed whether or not they should dispel some of the lies about the 2020 election. Let's call it January 5th, 2021. Could have been a key day, Dom. The documents showed that for months, Fox executives debated whether or not to continue the 2020 election lies coming from their hosts, pundits, and advisors to Donald Trump that were welcomed on their air to spin the Trump loss into a win. At one point, former Rep. Paul Ryan, I guess he was Speaker of the House of Representatives once upon a time, Dom.
Well, I believe he is the guy that merged the agendas with Donald Trump.
Well, now as a Fox board member, begged the leadership not to allow the conspiracies to persist. But it all came to a head the day before the January 6th attacks on Congress. And Dom, this is new reporting. I've never seen this prior to this Dominion Voting Systems filing that came today in the defamation suit. But it all came to a head the day before the January 6th attack on Congress. Scott, again, she's the CEO, and Rupert Murdoch discussed whether or not they should do something. Should we do something, Dom? Here's a quote. Rupert understood that Fox could do something about the false claims, the documents say. Indeed, he believed that Fox was, and here's a apparently subquote, one must assume, from Rupert Murdoch. Fox was uniquely positioned to state the message the election was not stolen. On January 5th, Rupert and Suzanne Scott discussed whether Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham should say some version of the election is over and Joe Biden won. Murdoch hoped such words would go a long way to stop the Trump myth the election was stolen, the documents continue. Suzanne Scott told Rupert Murdoch, and this again a quote from the filing, privately, they're all there, but we need to be careful about using the shows and pissing off the viewers. So nobody made a statement. The next day, maybe you'll recall, Dom, January 6, 2021. Something happened that day.
Yes. Peaceful protest.
Anyways. Here we are today.
I know, and this keeps coming on, so let's address the Paul Ryan, also from the Raw story today. Former Speaker Paul Ryan may have handed Donald Trump another reason to hate him. Trump has been raging about Ryan on his personal social media site over the weekend after Ryan said he won't attend the Republican convention if Trump is the nominee. Evan, we have some sound in this regard. We've got a couple of clips from Ryan. Let's hear what the Fox News board member had to say just this weekend.
In 2024, the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, where will you be?
It depends on who the nominee is. I'll be here if it's somebody not named Trump.
You won't show up if it's not.
Yeah, I'm not interested in participating in that, no.
Even in Wisconsin?
Even in Wisconsin.
Not even in Wisconsin. We have another one, I believe, on Paul Ryan. Let's hear it, please, Evan.
He's fading fast. He's a proven loser. He cost us the House in 18. He cost us the White House in 20. He cost us the Senate again and again. And I think we all know that. And I think we're moving past Trump. I really think that's the case. I can't imagine him getting the nomination, frankly. And I don't mean this because I don't want him to get the nomination. I just don't think he will as an analytical point. I think we're hopefully coming back full circle to being maybe a populist party. That's great and fine. I want to be popular, but principled and with policies that solve problems.
No, not going to happen. Back to the reporting. Ryan complained as a Fox Corporation board member that it was his fiduciary duty to inform Murdoch that they shouldn't be spreading incorrect information about the 2020 election.
Like they might get sued for defamation and lose billions at trial, Dom?
I mean, if that were the only case, it's just for the money alone, you're going to get sued. This could be very bad. But I mean, then there's this other thing about, I don't know, honesty, the fourth estate, country, patriotism. They call themselves patriots. They pander to the patriots, but they lied to you. They lied to you. A little bit more here.
You know what the interesting part is? You know what you don't see anywhere here in any of the depositions I've seen so far from Rupert Murdoch or senior executives from Fox News is any fear about loss of credibility. You know what I mean? Like as a news organization, like if we don't tell the truth, we will lose credibility.
No, right.
Doesn't factor in one
What a quaint thought. I appreciate credibility. I think it's something earned over time and goes away really fast. Ryan confirmed that the inflection point was not just one day. It was the whole time in the post-election November-December timeframe, court documents say. Ryan knew that these conspiracy theories were baseless and that Fox should labor to dispel conspiracy theories if and when they pop up, the documents continue. Ryan also understood that when events occur, Fox can clearly amplify that news being made by covering it. Ryan believed there ought to be a listing of all the allegations and then all the evidence or the validation or invalidation of those election fraud allegations, just for the viewer's sake, as suggested, and suggested as much to Fox senior management. Ryan told Rupert and Lachlan that Fox News should not be spreading conspiracy theories. Former conservative columnist Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post commented on that fact, saying Ryan still stayed on the board of Fox despite disagreeing with their promotion of what he called conspiracy theories. In fact, Ryan profited off of it. Yes, well, thanks for the suggestion, board member Ryan, for your fiduciary duty, but we're going to continue cashing those checks so you can continue cashing yours.
Some of the text messages that Move On want to bring to the audience's attention. Rudy is acting like an insane person, according to Sean Hannity. Tucker Carlson says, Sidney Powell is lying, by the way. These texts and others were featured prominently in the Move On ad. They won't play on Foxy News. Apparently they don't need that money, Dom.
Nah.
Come back. We are a fiduciary of your airwaves. 844-967-2789.
It's not going to be the days of Paul Ryan and Trey Gowdy.
Your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected on the Civic Media Network, civicmedia.us.
ABC News, hi, Andy Field. The White House says there is no consensus about where COVID-19 came from. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
There's not been a definitive conclusion, so it's difficult for me to say, nor should I feel like I should have to defend press reporting about a possible preliminary indication here.
The Energy Department issuing what it calls a low confidence conclusion that COVID had leaked from a Chinese lab. A week after President Biden made an unannounced visit to Kyiv, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen traveled to the Ukrainian capital, meeting with President Zelensky, reassuring the U.S. commitment to the war-torn nation. Ohio officials met with business leaders in East Palestine, asking what the community needs to move past the toxic train derailment. Several million Americans in more than 40 states on alert for severe weather, possible tornadoes across the plains to snow in the upper Midwest and Northeast. Stocks closing higher to start the week. This is ABC News.
Your official home of Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring Packers legend Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Saturdays and Sundays at 1 on Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX.
This is Pat Kreitlow from Up North News Radio. Now that Dan Kelly is one step closer to getting back on the state Supreme Court, he's going to get a boost from a phony referendum that'll also be on the April ballot, thanks to legislative Republicans. Voters will be asked, should able-bodied, childless adults be required to look for work before getting any welfare benefits? But that's already in state law. They know that. But they also know the ballot question provides a convenient excuse for distractions, political ads, and angry radio hosts talking about welfare cheats, because they'd rather not talk about how Kelly on the court would mean the 1849 abortion ban stays in place and political maps can stay rigged. If more voters knew about that, they'd be less likely to support Kelly. So bring on the latest load of manufactured anger about an issue that isn't real. Catch Up North News Radio weekday mornings 6 to 8.
The Civic Media team would like to say congratulations. More than 200 Wisconsin businesses and nonprofits are receiving a free advertising campaign through our one-day $1 million advertising giveaway. If you missed out, our local sales team would still love to help you with your own campaign. Go to civicmedia.us and click on the sponsorship tab. Again, civicmedia.us and sponsorship. New and still growing. Advertise today with the Civic Media network of radio stations.
Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers so concerned about the environment?
True, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yeah, I even walk to work.
Come on, always?
Well, sometimes I bike, and if I have an appointment across town, I use my solar panels to charge my plug-in.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Check them out at solidarityrealty.com.
This is Pat Greitlow from Up North News Radio. On the air, online, or on demand, make it a point to catch the first word on Wisconsin news, sports, and more weekday mornings from 6 to 8 all across the stations of the Civic Media Radio Network.
Dueling Tangents with Luke and Brian.
I'm really trying hard not to go insane from the mind screw that is this situation with the I was going to say the GAB, but now it's the WEC, which was audited by the LAB, and then it's now screwed up by the GOP, and we're all SOL. Good for us. Congratulations.
Look at all those acronyms. Yeah.
We're the winners.
Tune in for Dueling Tangents every weekday at 2.
The Devil's Advocates know how to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and we're all out of bubblegum.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Monday edition, the happier happy hour, rolling through it with your phone calls. We'll get to them right now, just to see what CJ's up to. How you doing, CJ? What do you got for us?
Hey there, gentlemen. Well, you know, I do care whether news organizations do lie to us, but
did Fox News lie to you, CJ? Did they lie to you?
Sean Hannity,
yes.
They're pundits, just like Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell.
Did they lie to you?
And, you know, so
did they lie to you?
I wish you would have. Pardon me.
Did they lie to you? Did those Fox News hosts, as employees and representatives of the Fox News network, getting paid by Fox News? Did they lie to you? Did they put people up there to lie to you? People that they said privately behind the scenes that they had no credibility, they're crazy, they're insane, that they're lying to them. Do you think then by their very actions that Fox News lied to you, CJ?
I would say that we really don't know, you know, whether they said something or not. I watched Brett Baer's special report. That is a news journalist. I don't listen to all the pundits. I do listen, but I don't believe whatever channel you're watching. So the mere fact, you know, I wish you would care that
we care about the truth, CJ.
2.5 years we listened to Pencil Neck and MSNBC lie to us about Russian collusion. And as far as Paul Ryan goes,
CJ, there was Russian collusion. I mean, you understand that, right?
I put him on hold.
Okay, all right. I mean,
when he goes in a completely different direction, here's what I would say. If I found out that Pencil Neck or whoever he's
Adam
accused,
Schiff,
if I found out that there was exonerating evidence against the former president, and if Mueller could have exonerated him, he would, but he could not. In fact, he laid out multiple cases of obstruction of justice, and the subsequent reporting, just the public reporting, we know there have been more and more, let's call it, conflicts with the former president and his associations with Russian oligarchs and others. But ultimately, CJ, it's about the preferred news source of the right. And it's been lying to its audience.
For money.
Rupert Murdoch, the CEO, the head of the board of, he's not even the CEO, he's the head of the board of directors, acknowledged in his depositions, yeah, we did it for the green. We did it for the money. So, CJ, I can tell you, as broke-ass radio host, we've never lied to you for the money, man. We have never lied to anyone for the money. Maybe we'd be rich like Hannity and Tucker and Laura Ingraham and Jeannie Pirro. Maybe if we didn't have souls, Dom, if we didn't mind lying to our audience, telling them, you know, inconvenient truths, if you will. But I got to tell you, dude, we tell you the truth to the best of our knowledge. And we try to support that with facts and credible sources. And unfortunately, Fox News is not a credible source. So stop watching them. 844-967-2789. Dom, I suspect you might have more headlines. I see you. You look almost giddy.
Well, I just was jumped on the foxnews.com website, and, you know, for the life of me, I cannot find anything that's breaking on every other CNN, Washington Post. I haven't checked the New York Times, but I'm sure if I do a refresh on the Times, they'll tell me all about Murdoch's deposition and these conversations that went back and forth. And this is breaking news. But if you want the breaking news, apparently, about Fox News, you don't go to Fox News about breaking news about Fox News.
Dominic, behind the scenes at Fox News after the 2020 election, it was becoming clear that the conservative primetime hosts were saying one thing to the viewers and another thing privately.
You don't say.
That's what's being alleged, Dom. According to the court filings by Dominion Voting Systems in their lawsuit against Fox News, the host of the networks knew very well that Donald Trump lost the election and that his election conspiracies were all lies. Sean Hannity was a close advisor to Trump and his 2020 election, even going so far as to endorse his phony election fraud claims before ultimately abandoning them. On January 12th, Paul Ryan discussed with Rupert and Lachlan the article called The Alternative Reality Machine about the right-wing media ecosystem created an alternative reality for those who had come to rely on its outlets for news. They'll call it Fox News. And were enablers of the January 6th, said the documents. Ryan believed that some high percentage of Americans thought the election was stolen, and this according to Paul Ryan, because they got their diet of information telling them the election was stolen from what they believed were credible sources, you know, the Foxy News. When Murdoch responded to Ryan's email, he said, "Thanks, Paul. Wake-up call for Hannity, who has been privately disgusted by Trump for weeks, but was scared to lose viewers."
I mean, you kidding me? Really? You're going to carry water for someone you're disgusted with, for someone that you know is lying to you, for someone who is putting his surrogates out there on your show. And you continue to let that happen for money. I mean, at least we know the price. But what about the country? You know, you talk about these. They play to your sense of patriotism, and they lie to you. I mean, you got to be freaking kidding me. This is it's everything we've known, but it's never been so articulate and clear.
Dominic, you know, we talk about telling a story for fun and profit. Well, the question becomes, well, how much profit? How profitable is Fox News exactly?
Right.
Have you looked it up? Because
I have not.
I did.
That's a great point. All right.
I did a little Google. It was worth a Google, Dom.
All right.
What was not broke. Fox News 2021 profit? Well, the net income for the 12 months ending December 31st, 2022 was $1.5 billion, about a 5% increase year over year. Fox's annual net income was $1.2 billion, almost a 44% decline from 2021. Well, what happened in 2021, Dom? The January 6th and the tales of stolen and rigged elections, right? Very profitable. Fox News annual net income for 2021, $2.15 billion, a 115% increase from 2020. So 2020 is an election year. Fox
a lot of money
News
being spent on election year, yes.
is a political network. And during the election year, the most expensive political election in their nation's history, Fox News made a hell of a lot less money than it did denying the election outcome in 2021. Their profits surged 115%. They might actually lose that differential, this $1.6 billion lawsuit with Dominion. They might actually kiss it all back, Dom. They might lose the increase of profit in 1 year should they lose this $1 billion plus lawsuit.
Yeah, but where do we go to get our respect back? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's one thing to cash the check. They got the money. No matter what happens, fine. What about the long-term damage? I mean, I'm very concerned about people like CJ. And CJ's, unfortunately, probably one of the more reasonable of the megas out there who at least understands some of the blatant lies that maybe we're coming out of. Where do we go to get our country back?
Well, Dominic, just so we're clear, that's just the profit. You know what their revenue was? Fox News revenue?
Gross revenue?
Well, let me make sure. Fox News revenue for the 12 months ending December 31st, 2022, $14.3 billion. $14.3 billion in advertising revenue. The $1.5 billion, well, that's just the net profit.
No, yeah. So
and the 2 point, well, you got your
margin.
NBA. I'm saying it's slow for the other people down. And the 2.15 billion net profit, the 115% increase was specifically in 2021, a non-presidential year, a non-midterm year, a year when there was effectively no elective cycle. And they blew it up over the presidential election year that was 2020.
It was supremely profitable. I mean, beyond anyone's hopes or dreams, at least at Fox News. They made money hand over fist.
Dom, and I'm not perfectly memoried, but I have a fairly good memory. If you look at WISN, Right Wing Talk Radio's ratings in like December of 2020, after Joe Biden had been announced the presidential winner, their ratings plummeted. They were down in the 5s. Since that time, and I would assert Fox News, while they have lied about the outcomes, that is basically the game plan of Dan O'Donnell and Mark Belling.
Baby. Yeah. No, great observation.
And their ratings went from like a 5.6, 5.9 up to a 10 something. And it spiked with the claim that the election was stolen in the January 6th. That's when the ratings spiked on Righty Whitey Talk Radio. That's what their audience wanted to hear, because the audience was depressed to think, well, Donald Trump didn't win. Not everyone likes this guy as much as we do. But, you know, it's funny.
But they were also gaslighted and primed from Donald Trump specifically for hell 6, 7, 8 months prior to the election. He was saying from the
Fox
get-go.
News and Right Wing Talk Radio, because they, of course, gave him the platform. And when Donald Trump says, well, if anything happens other than my glorious victory, it's a rigging.
Right.
Well, you know what? Here's the interesting part, and we'll get to the phones momentarily. 844-967-2789. Guess who else is attacking Fox News today? Why, it's Donald
Trump. Of course he
And
is.
you know why he's attacking Fox News today, Dom? Because they have not given enough lift to new Fox News polling that shows he's handing Ron DeSantis, the preferred, less crazy Ron DeSantis. Trump is handing DeSantis his ass in GOP polling. The base, the Fox News base, the viewers that came back when they started claiming it was rigged. Well, the base only wants to hear what the base wants to hear. They've lost control of their own viewers, their own base, Tom. They don't want reality. CJ doesn't want reality. CJ wants to hear it was stolen. It was rigged. Real quick. Former President Donald Trump renewed his attack on Fox News this week, accusing the network of underplaying his new polls, showing him with double-digit leads over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in a potential 2024 Republican presidential primary matchup. So when Paul Ryan, Fox News board member, says, oh, Trump's going to lose because he keeps losing elections for us, I don't think the base gets that, Paul. I think what you want is aspirational. Dom, Trump, in reference to Fox News polling published Sunday that showed him leading DeSantis by 15 points in a hypothetical matchup, knocked the media giant for promoting DeSantis so hard and so much that there's not much time left for real news. Reminds me of 2016, and they were pushing Jeb, the new Fox poll, which have always been proposedly terrible for me, has Trump crushing the sanctimonious, but they barely show a Trump road. Isn't there a big, beautiful network which wants to do well and make a fortune besides? Fake news.
Yeah, they did. It was Fox, and now they're in court for it. But don't worry, I'm sure like OAN or Newsmax or what some of these other outfits will be more than happy. Hell, Trump, you can start your own media organization. Wasn't that one of the bright ideas that he and Junior had?
I think it was, Tom. But I suspect the craven leadership over at Fox News, they'll come crawling back to Trump. He's going to win the Republican primary, Dom. He's still the favorite of the base. They don't want the truth. You don't want the truth, CJ. Just tell you sweet little lies. Come back. More Devils. Your calls could be next. 844-96-PARTY.
Boy, it's like they're so ideological that they subvert their own interests. That's disgusting. Put it away, please. We don't do that here.
Phones, social media, you've kept up with the times. If you can do that, you can definitely save for retirement. Go to aceyourretirement.org and in just 3 minutes, you'll get free tips to help boost your retirement savings. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
But Dom, we've been following a couple of big stories this week. Truck convoy leader has no idea where he is and is driving in circles around I-495. He didn't know precisely where he was going anyways or where he was at the time. Apparently, he put the convoy back on the road, headed back up north, and he's back in Scranton. So
I totally would have protested this tyranny, but damn, the traffic was so bad.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Mom was always very organized, but my sister and I noticed she started to forget things.
Telling my girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard.
But Mom's early detection gave us time to make a plan.
My sister and I were there for Mom and each other.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Weather on this snowy day could be brought to us by your business. Can you imagine how many snow blowers, snow shovels, and snowmobiles are being sold as we speak? Weather sponsorships make the phone ring. Call us at 608-819-8255.
Here's your Mad Radio forecast. Cloudy skies tonight with lows around 30. Northwest winds 10 to 20 miles an hour. High temperatures reach up to 43 tomorrow. Mainly cloudy skies expected. Mixed precipitation likely tomorrow night, 33. Chance for mixed precipitation Wednesday with highs in the mid-40s. Overcast Thursday. A dusting of snow tomorrow night. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 35 degrees.
Sixty 60% of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now. We'll get to you, I promise. 844-967-2789. But I got to throw this one out there. All this breaking news because of the Dominion defamation lawsuit against Fox News. Some court documents released.
Don't listen, CJ. You don't want to know this truth.
Sarah Burris working hard over at the Raw story. Lots and lots of journalists working overtime right now. Apparently, Some of these documents expose conversations between News Corp CEO Rupert Murdoch and some Republicans. One of those conversations was with the then Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell. Remember, Mitch remained largely silent during the 2-month period between November election and the January 6th attack on Congress. Here's a quote from the court documents. Rupert also called Mitch McConnell immediately after the election and thought that it was, quote, probably true that during that call, Rupert urged him to ask other senior Republicans to refuse to endorse Mr. Trump's conspiracy theories and baseless claims of fraud. What do you mean? Those Rupert Murdoch telling the Senate Majority Leader at the time that there were conspiracy theories and baseless claims of fraud? And you told them, the senators, not to endorse? Well, why not? They were hearing that from your station, from your network.
You know what week this week is for conservatives, Tom?
What week is this week?
It's CPAC, baby.
Is anybody going?
Well, Fox News apparently is only doing a live stream. They're way back. They've scaled way back in their coverage. Ron DeSantis apparently skipping out. But Matt Schlapp, you grab some junk of a Herschel Walker staffer, a male staffer, and
the next thing, no one wants to show up at your party?
No, there's still plenty of conservatives at the party. But, this sort of lift piece, often sponsored by Fox News. It's pretty bad. You would think Fox News would walk away from the CPAC due to the sexual allegations against Matt Schlapp or the homosexual sexual allegations against Matt Schlapp. They don't like the gays and all that kind of stuff, Tom. But I'm not clear that that's the problem.
What's the problem?
I just think that, Ron DeSantis is the chosen one of Fox News. If Ron ain't going, Foxy News ain't going. We will get to the phones momentarily. Do you see DeSantis rolled out a new book? Oh, did that get crapped on by the New York Times? They said it effectively lacks all joy, sense of humor, charisma.
That sounds perfectly like a book that DeSantis would write.
It sounds, at least you don't have to worry about a ghostwriter. Because if Scott Walker had written a book about himself, I've heard his 3-hour life story over and over again told on the Bellings show. Wanker fills in occasionally. He goes and fills in. He's only got 3 hours of material.
And he says the same thing over and over again.
Yes. And I got to tell you, the ghost-written, unintimidated book written by Mark Thiessen, much better than any efforts that Wanker ever would have done. Sure, you had to make a few things up.
But we're selling books here. At least selling books to, your campaign and other campaigns to essentially launder money. But, what do I know?
844-967-2789. It almost feels like the Ponzi scheme's coming down in some way, shape, or form, Tom. You never can tell, though. Nick from Madison, welcome back. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, guys. Hey, good to talk to you both again. It's been a while, I know. But, I know what you were talking about before with Fox News. Like, I stopped watching Fox News a long time ago. First of all, when they just dropped the moniker Fair and Balanced, because we all knew that was BS from the begin with. We all knew it was a conservative-based station. But they're not even pretending anymore, And, yes, and the fact that they would put all these lies out there, and flat-out lies, and you had to be truly stupid to believe them. Just for ratings, that just drove me nuts. So I'm just done. And honestly, guys,
but Nick, isn't it up? Because, I get it, but there's certainly responsibility for the audience, right? But the responsibility also lies with the network, right? They know what they're putting out there. They know that people believe them. That's what all this testimony and documentation shows. So what credibility does Fox News have? But they stay with them, Nick.
Well, look at what happened. When Fox News called Arizona for Biden, which was correct, people just went nuts, and they were going to Newsmax and OAN and everything. So that's when Fox News they were following their audience is what they were doing, and which is wrong because it wasn't factual, but it was wrong. But guys, I want to tell you that even though I think you're both wrong on so many things, but you're honest, and I respect that.
Well, I'm going to cut you off right there because
thanks.
I want to end you with respect, but we're not wrong on that many things. Maybe like 37% of the things.
Some of the things, maybe once in a while.
Wisco Paul, tell us we're great.
Hey, Paulie.
We need our esteems lifted.
You guys got to be great. I've been listening to you since the beginning, so you're great, and thanks for taking my call. Hey, I just want to say that because of these lies, people were actually maimed, hurt, killed, death threats to election officials, and it doesn't seem to matter. And the other thing, it's all on tape, all of it, and now they have the emails from Fox News that were basically laughing at their audience. And these people are still, hey, I got a question. Is there anything beyond stupid? Is there anything, because this is beyond stupid. So thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks. I would say, listen, if you rely on a news organization for your information and assume it's going to be true, that is a betrayal of the audience. I mean, literally. I mean, people are sitting in jail. You mentioned, people died. I mean, this was part of an attack upon this country. This was what the seed corn of the seditious conspiracy.
And Dominic, when I burned it down over at Fox News, I did so because they will not and would not cover the January 6th hearings live. And if you'll recall, I went on Mike Emanuel's show that Sunday afternoon, and they had gotten to the point where they were calling me infrequently, like every 4 to 6 weeks. Got to be a kind of a drag on my Sundays.
Sunday fun day, man. Hell of a time to spend with Fox News.
But I called him out that day, Dom, and shockingly, since I called BS on Fox News for not covering it, and Mike Emanuel, he argued, but how do you argue? They ran Tucker with no commercial breaks because they were worried the Fox News audience might figure out that there were some actual facts being delivered by every other news network in this nation, excepting the Foxy News. Thank you. You've chosen the right news source. We're often wrong, according to Nick.
I don't believe it.
But we always tell you the truth, our truth. And that's usually backed by sources.
Facts and reality.
Not including Fox News. Stick around. The Paul Revere Show at 7. Native Roots Radio is next. Keep it locked. Civic Media will always tell you all the hard truths.
What the fuck say?
Probably shouldn't even be on air right now.
All right. See you later.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion along with the growth